Hi guys, thanks for tuning in again to my channel. This week's video I'm going to be talking about RAM, the gold on the RAM, the chips on the RAM. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to depopulate 1 kg of RAM chips. As you can see, I will have different types of RAM chips. I'll have some with the larger chips and some with the smaller if I can find them. Also, I just want to talk about these type of RAM chips that I've come across. These type of RAM chips don't have the gold flashing on them. Now, more than likely they're silver. They could be possibly tin. I'll have to do a test on them to find out whether they have silver or tin on them along there. Again, the chips here, I haven't processed any of these chips at the moment. I'm just collecting them, so I'll let you know when I do finally process them. So I'm not going to do them today. I'm going to keep them separate. I'm just going to work on the ones with the gold fingers. So for them today, I'll be using shears, and when it comes to taking the chips off, I'll be doing them using a chisel. So again, as I always say in the videos, anytime I'll be using anything fairly sharp like that, I'll always put the gloves on. So what we'll do first is we'll weigh out a kg of the RAM chips. We just wait for the scales to set. So there we are. So we'll get a kg of the RAM. So these are, as I was saying, the different types of chips I'll be doing. So as you can see, the chips there, 2 different types of chips. So we'll be separating them. I'll weigh them out at the end and see what we got for the kg. So we'll just put all these in at the moment, whatever we have here mixed. So I've already removed the fingers off that one, so we'll leave them aside. It's just the ones that we haven't done. I'll be showing you how I depopulate these. So that's half a kg at the moment. Some of them will have chips on both sides, some will have chips just on one side. It's just to try and get an idea when I do process them, what sort of average you'll get a gold out of a kg of RAM sticks. So at least if you're buying them online or anything like that, if you're buying them off anyone or you want to pay for them, it'll give us an idea later on down the ring. Now I won't be processing them for a while, so I'll just take note of what we get. So we're at 960, 970. So that's 998. I wonder, can we get one more to make it? So it's just slightly over a kg. 997. 993. So let's say kg. We're just slightly over a kg, as you can see by the figure. So we're just slightly over the kg, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start processing them there now. So we put the rest aside. I will be processing more myself later, but for this video I'll just be doing a kg. I have another batch of them here that I want to process. So, but we'll just do it with these at the moment, and I'll separate everything out and we'll see what we have. So won't need the scales. Put them away for a while. So to do the fingers, it's just straightforward. Just get yourself sharp shears, try and line it up as best you can with the gold fingers, and just along we go. Now some people I've seen online have got better way of doing these than I do. Now I usually have a better shears than this, but for this I can't seem to put my hand on it at the moment. Wherever it's gone. I have a habit of leaving stuff down and not being able to find it again. So you can see that's just straightforward. It's just cut along them. all we're left with when we cut it, we've got our chips left there, which I'll process in a while. I'll show you how I do them. But for the moment, I'm just going to cut a few fingers there. I have another shears here. We'll just see what this one is like for cutting them, if it's any better, because I can't find my... I have a very good one, but I don't know where at this moment in time. Ah yeah, this one. It's not too bad. So again, just straight along, making sure that we try and cut it as close as we can where the gold ends and the board begins, as I say. So as you can see, that's cut along there. So we're left with our gold finger. We have a little bit of green there, but I'll try and keep it as close as I can. So we'll just go along again and we'll cut that. So now some people will just cut the fingers off, keep the fingers, and they might sell the ram online again on eBay, just for the chips again. A lot of the gold, most of the gold is what I hear inside the chips. Again, I have not processed any of the chips. All I've been doing is collecting them up. So I can't tell you whether there is or there isn't at the moment, but hopefully when I get around to that stage of processing the chips, we'll know. But so at the moment it's just cutting off the gold fingers, and that is all I do. So just remove the gold fingers and we collect them up. So I'm going to just pause the video there. I'll come back when I have all the fingers cut. You don't need to see me cutting every finger. I'll just cut them down, and when we've them all cut, we'll weigh up what I have, and then we'll move on to the chips. Okay guys, nearly finished trimming the last of this ram, so just a quick refresher on it again. So as I said, it's just line up your shears and just try and trim as close as you can so that the least amount of green is left on them when you're finished. Now you can see some of mine aren't great, but I'm going to blame the shears, you know. It's not that accurate. It's if I had my proper shears, I would have had this really accurate. Of course I would. So that's the last one of the chips now, or last one of the ram sticks that needs the gold to be trimmed off, and we'll be ready to move on to how I remove the chips from mine. So again, we'll just finish that up there now. So as you can see, all I'm left with then is my stick minus the gold fingers. So we'll just do a quick weigh up of what we've got. Okay, so we started with just over 1 kg of ram, and we'll see what we've got in trimmed fingers. So from the kg of ram, I have 68 grams of the trimmed fingers. So as we can see, the bulk of them, of the ram, is going to be the weight. It'll be your chips and the sticks itself. The fingers will weigh very little once they're trimmed off. So we have 68 grams of them. So what I'll do with them now is I'll add them to the other ones that I've already got from previous trimming of fingers. So I'll just put them into my container here, and we'll just keep collecting them up. So when I go to process them, I'll process 68 grams separate, or I'll get a percentage what 68 grams, say if I process a kg fingers, I'll work out what 68 grams of it would be equivalent of. So at least we'll be able to, when I go to process them at some stage, it'll give me an idea of what's in a kg roughly. So if I am buying any online, or if I come across somewhere the person may have a lot of RAM and he's just wanting to sell it, at least I know if I can make money out of it with the price they've set. If not, I'll stay away from it. That's what you have to watch. Is I see on eBay a lot that people are overpaying for RAM, overpaying for processors. So just be wise. So that's the reason I'm doing this, is mainly for myself, so that when I do get a bit more into this, at the moment, I'm just collecting off friends, stuff like that, getting the sticks off friends. I have a little contact who works in a computer store, so he's given me a few of them as well. So at least then I know if I do decide to start buying it, there's a bit of money left in it at the end for myself, or whether it's worth staying away from altogether. So that's that part now. So next part will be the removal of the chips. Okay, so for the removal of the chips, I'll be using a chisel. It's the way I like to remove the chips. So you chisel, you can get bigger ones, smaller ones, whatever suits yourself. Just see what's lying around with a few different size chisels. So for this one, I'm just going to use this one. So the first chips I'm going to start removing will be the larger ones. I'm going to start with them and then show you the way I remove these. So again, I just like to lie down there, a bit of cardboard underneath it, and I just run the chisel along there. So as you can see, one quick run and that quick wiggle, and I have my chip off. There we go. So I have the chip off. So again, I just run the chisel, sharp end in, run it there, and there again. So that's very easy to remove the chips that way. So I just run it quickly, getting down through it. Chisel will lift it. So these are very straightforward to remove. They're very easy, I find, with a chisel. Some people will use air drills, whatever they have. I don't have air drills. I'm not investing in that sort of equipment yet, because at the moment I'm just collecting. I'm trying to work out whether there's money to be made in this hobby or not. And if there's money to be made, then maybe I'll invest with quicker tools. Same I see for the removing of the gold fingers. People will be using guillotine shears. I see online they have guillotine shears. I've looked up the price of them. They go anywhere from about $50, which would be equivalent maybe €40 here in Ireland. But the thing is, it's hard to get them here in Ireland. It seems to be mainly in America. I've seen them. I've seen one in the UK for sale on eBay. But by the time you pay postage and everything, you could be talking over 100 for it. So at the moment, I'll just carry on with my chisel. It's not costing me a couple of, about €2.50, equivalent to $3 maybe for the chisels, for a set of chisels. So, and it does the job, straight down through. Well, it usually does the job. There we go. So what I'll do is I'll carry on here again, removing these chips. So again, it's straightforward. Just run along there. There we go. We pop it off. So there's not really much to removing these type of chips. So I'll carry on until I remove all of these type, and then we'll move on to the second type of chip there is, and we'll see what weights we have in the chips. So again, just close up. I'll give you a bit closer up view of it. So it's just straightforward. I run the chisel along here, either side. So I just, on this one, it's not too hard. So again, I have gloves on me, so I'll just run it there with my finger down there, and that releases it. And there we go, we have it, the chip off. So it's not actually that hard to do. So I'll carry on, I'll work through these here, and then we'll move on to the second type of chip that I've come across on the boards, or on the RAM sticks, and we'll see how they go for it. So I'll be back when I've removed all the chips from them. Okay, so I'm down to my last one of the chips with last one of my RAM fingers with the longer chips. So just to show again how I do it, just to finish up, slide it down, and that releases the chip. So again, slide it down, so you have the next chip off. Again, the same thing. Okay, so we'll just move along and we'll do the rest of them here on this one. Before we move on to the other type of chip that you'll find on your RAM sticks. So again, remember, always have the gloves on. no amount of gold or no amount of money is worth losing fingers and stuff like that over. So again, we'll just shake them loose. I'll take off the glove for this, it's a bit easier without the glove for removing them. So we'll just remove them off quickly and then we'll move on and we'll just do a quick weigh up of what we got. Most of the ram sticks that I processed or that I took there to make up the 1 kg, most of them had the larger chips on them. Again, when you're buying chips or buying ram sticks online, you're going to have a mix of ram sticks. You're going to have some with chips both sides, you're going to have some with just small chips, some with large chips. So we'll get our container and we'll just do a weigh up of what we've got from the larger chips. So we'll just zero that down. So just again, online a lot of people will be trying to make as much as they can from it, so don't overpay. This is going to give me an idea when I'm finished kind of what I can expect to get from a kg of ram chips that if I buy them online. Again, that's why I've mixed them, because when you're buying online you're not going to get all the same type. Most times people will have server RAM mixed with PC RAM mixed with laptop RAM, so then you're not going to get all the same type. So I'm just going to try and work out an average, so it gives myself an idea if I'm looking at buying them, whether there's money to be made in them, or whether just to stay clear and just, if you can't get them for free, not to bother with them. So from that there, from the kg of ram sticks, we have 306 grams of the larger ram chips. So we'll move on now to the other type that we have here. So again, I'll just put the gloves on when I'm doing this because I'll be using my chisel. So the way I do these is I try and get into the corner. So try and get your chisel into the corner and just pry away. So then the chip will just come away from the board. So again, same again, chisel down in underneath and push against. So that's why it's awful important that you wear your gloves. Always safety, because if you don't, chisel slips, embeds itself in your hand. As they could be out of work, off work, you can get blood poisoning and like that. So again, that chip now I've cleared it off. So we'll just get another chip. So, or another ram stick. So again, just into the corner. So in underneath, push against it, and that should release the chip. So they're not very hard to remove. Some of them now may be difficult to remove, but usually if it's a very sharp chisel, so this is a new chisel now, I've just taken out of a box there for doing this part because I blunted the other chisel, so it needs to be sharpened up. So again, underneath, and it frees the chip. So again, I'll just process these few chips through, these few sticks that I've left, and we'll come back and we'll summarise on everything that we've done today, what we've talked about, and we'll see then what we've got in total out of all our chips, or ram sticks. Okay, so just finishing off the last one of the ram sticks. So again, just remove the chips by using the chisel. So again, just in underneath the chip, as tight as you can get it under the corners, usually I find is the easiest. So put it in under the corner and pry away. So you can see there, it just comes off very easy. So it's not a long job with these type, especially the smaller chips. They come off fairly easy. So the only thing now in a second, I'll show you one of these others. There's the reason I left this one to the last, is I want to show you the center chip on this one. It's a bit more difficult to remove sometimes. So just 2 more of those. Okay, so this one here now, as you can see, has another chip here along one. Now again, sometimes this may break away, so again, try and put it in under the corner and pry. So that one is a bit more difficult, as you can see. It doesn't want to come away from the board very easy. It's chipping away from itself. So again, I'll go to this side and see, can I get a better... There we go. So in underneath it. So you can see the solder balls there on it. So they're soldered to the actual board. So later on I'll treat that when I'm doing my chips. I'll put these into HCl to get rid of the solder balls before I incinerate the chips. So again, I'll just put them in there. So that, and there's one more little chip here. So again, this one is usually the most difficult, is them ones. So we'll try and see if we can know. So he's falling apart, but actually that gives us an opportunity to have a look under it. So under it again, it's just soldered under it, and that's kind of it. Nothing more to it. So that's my gypsum. So we'll just do a quick weigh on them. And then we'll summarise what we've done. So again, we'll just set up the camera a bit better so you can see a bit better. So of the smaller chips, when I'm finished, I ended up with 17 grams. So not an awful lot there, so 17 grams. So to summarise, we started off with just over a kg, 1009 grams of ram sticks. Ram sticks were made up of a variety of ram sticks. So we had these type, which had chips both sides, chips one side, gold fingers, chips one side. We also had some with the chips on both sides. So again, I had a variety of gold fingers, chips on both sides. And the last ones we just done there was the smaller single-sided, smaller chip on them. Now, I ended up, from the kg in total, I ended up with gold fingers, 68 grams trimmed. The large chips, 309 grams, and 17 of the smaller ones. So we got a total... 394 grams in total of between chips and fingers. Now, I won't be processing them for a while yet, but I'll keep hold of them figures and we'll be able to work out. Just to finish up on the boards, on the ram sticks themselves, some of them will still have traces of gold left on them. So this one here is fairly cleaned, so I won't bother processing that any further. But we'll just find one, which would be this one here. So from this board here, you can see we still have traces of gold along here and along the front. So again, I'll hold on to them, I'll keep them separate, and when I'm processing my gold fingers, after I've cleaned off all the solder from them or any little chips that's left, or MCLs, or MLCs, sorry. There's some MLCs on these as well. So again, I'll remove the MLCs, store them up for processing with my MLCs whenever I'm doing them. So I'll separate out any that are no more use. I'm not going to waste any HCl cleaning them up any further unless I see that there's something on them. But any of them that still have traces of gold, so like this one here, as we can see there's a lot of gold here. Again, it's only very light amount of gold on it, but it all adds up at the end. So again, I'll just process all that with my trimmed fingers, clean up the board so that there's no solder left on it, so it's just a completely clean board. Put it into when I'm doing my fingers to lift the gold from them. So again, I'll do that on them. So I'll sort all my RAM that way. So again, you have more here on it. So that again, it all adds up. People sometimes won't bother once they've taken off the chips, once they've taken off the fingers. That's it. I like to just go through it again and remove as much gold as possible. Any amount of gold that you get is worth a few pound when it adds up into the total at the end of your whole process, or at the end of your year when you're looking at what you may have got from it. So even there again, you can see there's gold here. So the name of that chip, they've embezzled it in, or name of that ram stick, they've embezzled it in gold. So I'll remove that, I'll put that in for processing. So next week, my video will be on ink cartridges, the gold chips, the gold ribbons on the ink cartridges. So I'll do a video on that. Anyone wants to watch it, just keep an eye out for it on the channel. So just to finish up, just like my channel if possible, subscribe to it. I greatly appreciate it. I'll put links to a few videos there. There's a couple of lads who are the next stage on who will have processed the chips by incineration, and then extracting the gold by chemicals. So I'll put a link in my channel to that if you want to go straight from once I've taken the chips or once you've taken the chips off your ram or taken your gold fingers, how you process them further. I will be processing them myself, my own ones. I'll do a video on it later in the year, on how I do, but at the moment I'm staying away from the chemicals and kind of just depopulating and going from there. So please subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon so that you can get your notifications when I put new videos up. As I say, I plan to put a video up every week, maybe 2 videos depending on what time I have to spare on it. So thank you very much for watching, and that's it.